Hi, and welcome to this brand new podcast. I'm really excited to be speaking with two amazing women in business. We're going to be talking a lot about empowering women in the workplace. I'm delighted to be joined by two, here they are now, two amazing women working for different companies that are both doing incredible things for women, especially women in tech or girls in tech as well, as you'll hear a little bit more about from Lauren. So I've got Pinky and Lauren. So lovely to see you both. How are you?
Hi, Kat. Great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, same. Nice to see you both, and thank you for having me.
Lovely. So, Pinky, would you be able to start by introducing yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. My name's Pinky Ghadiali. I'm the CEO and founder of Netwomen, which I created that in 2020. We help companies globally increase their profits by elevating women to the top and keeping them there. And our mission is to bridge the gender and ethnicity gap and to move the needle on gender equality through equity by creating that 50-50 split at the top and elevating women.
Yeah, it's an amazing mission, Pinky. So I'm really glad to have you here.
Thank you.
And then Lauren, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Of course, yeah. So hello, my name is Lauren. I work for InnovateHer as the head of partnerships. InnovateHer they're a social enterprise, and we're on a mission to get girls ready for the tech industry and the tech industry ready for girls. We do that by offering our online platform for free into schools, which we do by getting funding from our amazing partners, and that allows teens to access the platform, which hosts a lot of courses relating to tech and a lot of other content on there too. We then provide a service back around ED&I to really help them not only attract but retain talent into their businesses. And in my role, I manage everything relating to our partnership network, ensuring that we deliver basically on all of our promises and ensuring that partners help us to hopefully fulfill our mission.
Yeah, again, another brilliant mission. So great to have you on as well. And I think kind of the work that both of you do intertwines quite nicely there then, really.
It does.
So no, that's brilliant. So actually, would you mind, I'm just thinking, Pinky, would you mind talking a little bit more about how Netwomen started? Because I thought your story actually was quite interesting with that, because it started with like a smaller network, didn't it? And then obviously turned into this huge platform.
Yeah, so initially when we started Netwomen, it was quite small. So I'd started off being an inclusive leadership coach, and everything that I was doing was about empowering women, about coaching women, about finding out, what the challenges were within their teams, within their corporate working lives. And what kept coming up for me and what was coming up every time I spoke to them was very much around imposter syndrome, limiting beliefs, mindset, and how it wasn't just an internal problem, it was also an external problem where women were facing barriers within the organization where they were being overlooked for promotion or being passed over, or perhaps not even putting themselves forward for a promotion in the first place because they didn't feel like they deserved it. And that feeling of not being good enough. And so once I started noticing that, in 2020, I looked at the stats for gender equality, and it's going to take 132 years, according to the World Economic Forum, to reach gender equality for leadership positions alone.
Oh my God.
That was a scary stat for me. And I just thought, I'm not even going to be alive to see this.
Right.
And how can we make this happen faster? Because a lot of the women that were coming to me were saying it's actually other women that were stealing ideas or holding them back from positions of power. And so I thought, right, this is what we need. We need collaboration, we need community, we need to more alliances need to be made between women's organizations, because we're all after the same thing. We all want the same thing. We all want to reach that point of gender equality. So how on earth are we going to get there if we keep doing it individually and stopping each other from getting there? So that turned into a bigger mission for me. And it was all about how do we create that equity to get to that equality. And so what we do with Netwomen, we started off with a B2C, just speaking to people individually and really finding out what their pain points were. And then from there, we evolved. So obviously going through COVID, being that online place for people who are very much alone or siloed from their usual work or work-life situation. And I think for me, that was the point where I realized that actually the biggest change we can make is if we go to companies and they sponsor their female talent into what we're doing at Netwomen as a community. And then 10 months, I mean, we've kept on adapting and evolving just like any other startup. And then 10 months ago, we incorporated in the US. And so from there, we've evolved the programs. So now we have programs around DEI, HR, inclusive leadership, that's really targeting all industries and all verticals. So all of my associates work in those areas so that we can help everyone, not just women. We talk to men as well, because they need to also listen to the challenges and the pain points that women have, and to help sponsor women in organizations too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That allyship is really important. And yeah, it's really interesting you said actually that it was often some of the women that were coming to you were saying it was other women holding them back. Do you think some of that is because there's almost a competitiveness because there are so many less women within that industry that they used to having to sort of fight for themselves rather than having that, like you said, that bigger picture of coming together?
I think generationally, we've been conditioned from a very young age as girls to be competitive. I went to an all-girls school and it was the worst 10 years of my life. And literally hated every minute because I was not in a space where I felt like I could collaborate with anyone. Everyone was competing with me. And it wasn't a space that I loved. And I thought, how can it possibly be that when I actually hang out with boys, it's a totally different thing where, they will help you, they'll try and make you be part of the team. I mean, I'm not saying this is across the board or, everywhere is like that, but it's specifically in the school that I went to, it was very much about quite competitive. And I think that's how, as females, we operate, which isn't really our zone of genius. I think if we actually think about who we are as females and how we work, we need to use more of those female traits of empathy in leadership, where when we use that and we use compassion and empathy, we end up being not only better leaders, but more inclusive. And that's where we come in as Netwomen to really help drive that change internally, but also externally, to break those barriers.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I think that might kind of feed in with Lauren with InnovateHer. I know in the article that you wrote for Rise, actually, you mentioned that obviously you're trying to get that equality across the whole tech sector in all sorts of different ways, but that actually tackling that gender equality was a stepping stone for that. So that kind of feeds into what Pinky was saying, I guess, about how actually with women in leadership, we can actually, then bring in more of that inclusion.
Absolutely. I think that, as an organisation, we kind of pick gender because we can't do everything. We would love to tackle all of it. We're really passionate about everything. But yeah, gender for us is the one that we see as in biggest need in what we're working in the industry that we're in. And again, we say tech because that we also say tech enabled. So these days it's
everywhere now, really, isn't it, when you think about it?
90% of roles now require some level of tech. So we'll often talk to a company and they'll say, "Oh, we don't deal with tech," but they don't factor in everything that that is a part of. So yeah, we really try to tackle that on it's such a broad scale, isn't it? But we're really just trying to make some sort of difference in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me a bit more then about the driver for particularly trying to get the workplace ready for girls.
Yeah, so I mean, to give a bit of background to InnovateHer, pre-becoming InnovateHer, we were Liverpool Girl Geeks. So our CEO and founder, Chelsea, essentially left university, got her first job, which was in the tech industry, and quite quickly realised that she was one of very few females. Any females coming in were quite quickly leaving. And from that, wanted to know why and explore it further, and then created Liverpool Girl Geeks, which was a bit of a community really for adult women to get together, to get involved in workshops, communicate, just get together and express their interest. And from that, a lot of what was kind of discovered was that women felt like it was too late for them to get into these careers, that they'd missed opportunities, and it just wasn't for them because of the nature of the beast of the industry. And yeah, so then that really highlighted the need to address it at a younger age. We work with sort of 13 to 17-year-olds predominantly, so obviously high school age, and the girls and the boys are such a difference in the way that they think. You see that boys kind of don't know what they want to do yet, and they'll just get shown something and maybe go for that, but then they can change their mind. Whereas the girls, they kind of make their mind up pretty young and stick to that because they believe that they've just got to go with that. So we really try and get in at that younger age to say, look at all these amazing opportunities that are out there that you might not have heard of, you don't know of, and yes, they're available to you. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, when I was growing up, I never would have thought of getting into tech. I definitely, when I was younger, thought it was for the boys. I don't know if either of you can relate or have similar experiences with that. But yeah, I didn't, and I definitely didn't understand the wealth of opportunities and the sort of jobs that would be available with it now either. So that makes sense to kind of, as young as possible, really show those options.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really firm believers in you can't beat what you can't see. So to put jobs and women in these positions in front of students, it's just so powerful to really open up opportunities and just showcase what's out there for them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So do you think at the moment, are women in general, I mean, obviously everyone's individual, but do you think generally women are feeling empowered in their workplaces? And has there been any notable differences, you think, within some different industries?
I think it is quite a hard question to answer because of the fact that there are so many different opinions on this, personal experiences and so on. But I think to answer it, I would say yes. I think that women, if they're in the right environment, if there's support, if it's an inclusive environment, then they can feel empowered. But I'm also very aware that that doesn't happen often or anywhere near as much as it should. I think that companies need to be sort of aware that they're creating inclusive environments that cater for everybody to feel empowered, no matter what their background, no matter what their identity, no matter what their gender is. From personal experience, I've got quite a corporate background, very sales driven, very profit prioritized, that sort of industry. And I would say when I was in there, I rarely felt empowered in my position. I think my thoughts or my ideas were taken seriously enough. There was just no support in place for me or for women in general. Now I'm in a different industry completely. Obviously, I'm in the third sector in not-for-profit. And yeah, I absolutely do feel empowered in what I'm doing now. I think the differences that I've personally seen between the two industries, it's huge. And I think that companies just need to do a lot more work on leveling that playing field for everybody.
What about you, Pinky? What would you say based on, I mean, obviously you kind of work with a lot of different companies through Netwomen as well.
I think when you look at very male-dominated sectors, particularly tech, engineering, law, finance, we often come across these barriers where women really do need that equity to be elevated, to reach those positions that they need to, they feel like they want to be in. And often what I find is that it's the ones where imposter syndrome comes up the most are those industries. And I think certainly in STEM, what I'm finding more and more of is that this doesn't get any better. It's still there unless organizations are willing to invest in their females and their talent, existing talent, to help elevate them, to help them get to positions where they want to be within that organization. We're going to keep facing the same barrier and going back to my point about how many years it's going to take to that point of equality.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not on target. We're not. The UN have already said we're way off the 2030 mission, which is what they had way back, which was going to reach gender equality by 2030. We're not. We're nowhere near that.
No, it's only 7 years from now, and definitely not at the rate it's going.
No, and I think certainly from where we're sitting as an organization, I mean, we wouldn't even be here if we'd reached gender equality by this.
You wouldn't be needed at that level, would you? It would be a different kind of work that you'd be doing, for sure.
And so why this exists, there's a number of reasons. There's so many nuances around the question about, do women feel empowered? Probably in some ways, but probably not to the point where we can now say, oh yeah, we have now got pay equality. We now have, a fair number at the top. Most organizations do not represent society. Most organizations are still pale, male and stale.
Yes. Yeah.
And, the faster we as a society realize that if we can make some changes within organizations now, and we start making the changes, then we can start seeing that for the foreseeable future, we can then talk about sustainability. We can then talk about where we're at for the future. But until that point, there's so much work to be done. Honestly, I see it all the time. And then, the cuts that are being made on learning and development and DEI and that kind of thing doesn't really help with this at all.
No, absolutely. I think there are a lot of businesses under financial pressures and things, but it is a shame that those areas are actually really key and actually would be more of a beneficial investment in future are the ones that are kind of getting cut first.
Yeah, we see that a lot. We see that the intent and the want is often there, but the minute that budgets get tight, we're the first to get dropped. So that it's not seen as that long-term commitment that it needs to.
Yeah, it makes sense. So obviously pay is a huge issue, that equal payment. And then with, like you were saying, Pinky, obviously not enough women at the top and not even just women, we've got the kind of white males, middle-aged, sort of the generic sort of top levels. What are some of the other key challenges and barriers that we're seeing?
I think one of the major factors that gets me is that we've been through a massive worldwide thing that has changed everything forever. Being at home and working from home meant that females who were taking the majority of the care responsibility for their children were able to do that, right? We got a taste, we got a flavor of what it looks like to be flexible, to have that workspace where you could still go pick up the kids. You had that ability to work from home, the hours that you wanted to work, and you still got the work done, right?
Yeah.
You were productive, you probably were more productive, right? And that's what the stats show. Now organizations are literally going, okay, you've had that, but you can't have it anymore.
It baffles me that it's like just not learning from it. Like I think it just makes so much more sense to be so much more flexible.
Exactly.
I mean, not just for women, just generally, I think it would cater to a lot of needs.
And I was just going to say that would be beneficial, not just for women, but also for men as well, because men need equal, parental rights and being able to have that.
If they're all having to be in the office all the time, then they're not going to have the opportunity either. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So in my mind, that change is then going backwards again, because I feel like we did progress slightly during COVID in that space. And then what happens to, parental leave when, you have a baby. So again, equal shared care means equal potentially in the office. You're both going in at the same, levels. And this is what I'm talking about when it comes to equity, because it's always the women that come out with the rough end of the stick every time. We've seen it time and time again. COVID, same thing happened. Lots of women left, were furloughed because they were part-time.
It was incredibly disproportionate, wasn't it?
So yeah, I think that was my main thing about it, that it really, that is the biggest barrier when it comes to, and even women who try and work in places, they're now stipulating that people need to be in the office and the flexibility is gone. So of course we're not going to apply for positions where flexibility is not there as one of the priorities.
Absolutely.
You're not going to go for that job. So how on earth are they going to get more women into these workplaces when they can't even offer that flexibility that they had in the first place?
Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. What about you, Lauren? Is there anything you would add?
Yeah, I think I know that we've already mentioned briefly the sort of lack of representation in leadership roles, but then there's also, quite similar to that, the lack of representation in these male-dominated industries, like technology and engineering, that are still just seen as a male-only workforce. I think because of that, women are often facing either exclusion or lack of support, sense of isolation. And in both scenarios, in leadership or a male-dominated industry, that affects confidence and advancement prospects for women. I think I mentioned it as well earlier that, you can't be what you can't see. So if we don't put these opportunities in front of people and showcase that it's not just for men, then that we're not going to see that change. That's why a lot of what we're trying to do at InnovateHer is to really showcase women either in leadership positions or in these male-dominated industries, and showing that it's possible to go down that route, and just to provide some inspiration for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what kind of advice can we give to workplaces? What should we see employers doing to help overcome these challenges and barriers?
I think that,
sorry, who wants to go first?
Go on, Lauren, you go first.
I think there's so many, I'm sure we can go.
There's a lot to unpack, I'm sure. So.
A lot, yeah. Where to start? I think employers play such a crucial role in creating that inclusive and empowering workplace for all employees. Not just women. It should be for everybody. But and I think that there's some things that are just really easy to implement, some really quick wins you can just get going on straight away. Some things are going to take time, and they're going to, it's going to be harder to embed into the business. But if you don't make a start, it's not going to happen. I think a key one is really promoting diversity and inclusion. Employers should really be actively promoting that within their organizations, making a statement of intent, confirming this is where we stand and this is what we care about and this is what we want to do. It can be things like establishing clear policies, doing an EDI strategy, putting that in place, setting goals with clear sort of metrics and targets to track that progress, to show that they aren't just saying it, but they're doing it, and this is what what we want to achieve. Just an initiative alongside that to really sort of support gender equality within the workplace.
Yeah, no, I think those are really good starting points. And I think where you've got those policies, you can then hopefully start to weave all of that into the values and the ethos of the company as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that goes such a long way to creating the culture of an organisation. I think your culture and how employees feel that culture it really represents you as an organisation, and that's see people wanting to come to work and give their best selves and stay in the organisation. So it's such an important thing to get the culture right.
Absolutely. Pinky, what would you want to add?
I think I want to echo what you've just said there, Lauren. I think one of the major changes and things that we notice is that, firstly, organizations tend to just do a tick box, which we want to move away from. And, it might look very much like on the website, they look like they're doing the right thing. And then we get people going to work for these organizations and saying, it's not really the case. They're not really doing anything around DEI. It's just looks like they are, but what are they actually doing? So what you were saying, Lauren, there about not just talking about it, actually doing something about it. And that actually means implementing strategies. It's about changing the way that things are right now, because the systems are broken. How do we then, we're not here to fix your system, we're here to actually implement an inclusive culture, which means, from my point of view, when we partner with organizations, we take a good look at where they are now, where they need to be, how long it's going to take to get there, what their plans are on this, and then how can we work together to actually get you to that point. And often it's not just, a 12-week workshop. It's not like that. It's not a program that you can just do in that sense. So I think for us, it's about long-term goals and partnerships where we can actually embed some of that good intention and create positive action from that. And making that happen is where leaders really need to be clued up on and make sure that they're actually investing in DEI and not letting it go, because it isn't in their best interest, because they are going to get left behind. And that, I love that phrase of, you can't be what you can't see. And quite honestly, if there aren't women there at the top doing that role modeling, that sponsorship piece in the first place, then how are we going to get and attract more younger talent to these organizations? And that equally goes for women of color, from people from underrepresented groups. We need that diversity to be able to show that we can innovate better, we can just generally be more productive and happier as an organization, because it's more representative of society.
Yeah, exactly. It can only be beneficial for everyone if it is actually more representative of our society. We'll just learn so much more from that. I mean, it's a bit like you said before, if we've kind of got the same, every organization just has the same kind of people within leadership at the top, then it just becomes stagnant, because we're not getting that innovation or those new ideas or that creative thinking, because we've just, it's too much of the same mindset.
I think you really need that top level buy-in as well. It's so important that when investing in ED&I and when you're making a statement that you're going to do it, it comes from above down, because otherwise it just gets lost and it doesn't maybe take it serious. So 100% you need buy-in from CEO down.
What about in terms of within the actual work environment? What steps can employers take to make those more gender inclusive?
I think I have to say what I said before about implementing change means investing in women. It means that never ever stops until you get to that point of 50-50, because when you stop, when you stop investing in women, that is where you start seeing the drop off. That's where you start seeing people leave, and we see it all the time. And and then there's a panic of, oh my goodness, we're going backwards. We were at 25%, we're now at 21%. Can you help us? So it's almost like, I hate to say it, but it's almost like we told you so. We can't help you when you've actually just taken away the budget for it, and then all of a sudden you go, oh, it's got worse. Oh, I wonder why that's happened.
No, that makes sense. What about you, Lauren?
Yeah, I agree. I think investment in all sorts of different ways is needed. I think professional development, training programs.
I'd agree. Training and professional development is something that can be quite lacking in businesses.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that you can invest that money in all sorts of different ways. I think another important training is to kind of address unconscious bias, because obviously it's unconscious a lot of the time, and unless you kind of start addressing that and dealing with that, then you don't know what those biases are, and that can go a long way in terms of really hindering women in the workplace. I think training and just awareness programs around that are key in the workplace. I think that it's just such a need. So training in things like that, but also in development mentoring programs for women are needs. I think as well, just circling back to the point on work-life balance, employers really need to offer flexible working arrangements.
Yeah, definitely.
Whether hybrid working, flexible hours, whether it's enhancing their parental leave policies, just anything to support that. I think, like you mentioned, obviously post-COVID, people have just got different expectations now. We've proven we can do it, so why aren't we doing it? And it should.
That sort of flexible working, like you say, is beneficial not just the parent rights and things, but also I recently I think it was an InnovateHer webinar about menopause as well, because obviously having that flexible working is actually really supportive for women going through menopause as well. If they want to be able to work from home in a more comfortable environment and they're still going to get their work done, what's the issue?
And that all comes down to trust, doesn't it? I think with flexible working, I think you're showcasing that you trust your employees, and that should be there. And I think that what you get back when you offer that, it's worth it. We're at InnovateHer, we're fully remote, so we're all dotted across the UK, and we're fully flexible. We swapped from a 40-hour full-time working week to a 30-hour one a couple of years back.
Okay.
Following lots of studies and research that was out there that showed that 40-hour week, you might not get people at their maximum capacity, and offering 30-hour week and free time back really makes a difference. So you can work however you want across the week. And for me, that it's very cheesy, but it's life-changing. Like the flexibility that I've got now, I condense my hours to a 4-day week, and I have a day with my kids. I've never, the fact that I can do that and still work full time, it is incredible. And I think that just needs to be so much more opportunities like that out there, that people can they can be a mum and they can work full time and do everything. So
it really help companies retain some of their best talent as well, by just giving that little bit of trust and that bit of autonomy.
100%.
So obviously we talked a lot about what people can do, and we have got a long way to go, but I thought it'd be nice to end on something positive, because obviously within the work that you've done, I'm sure you have seen some really good examples of women being empowered. And I think one of the key things that we can do is when we're looking at these workplaces that need that push, is to share that good practice as an example and to show it can be done. So what are some of the good examples that you've seen?
I think for me, when we see that companies are investing in professional development and the courses that we provide and the partnerships that we've created, what we notice is the communication is improved between things like ERGs and going to leadership roles. And so we get that connection and we get change happening, because we are that reporting. We're able to say it anonymously, to be able to pass that information on, to say, look, this is what's actually happening. And that is really interesting, I think, for organizations, because when they don't have the real data to support or feedback to support what's going on, and having stay interviews, like that is one of the things that we do a lot of. And what we've noticed is that when we talk about, you know, why are you staying? What's keeping you here? Rather than why are you leaving?
Yeah, that's really interesting.
It just flips the script. And there's so much that organizations can be doing. And often they don't have the time to do it all. So having somebody like us coming in and doing that as a consultancy, being able to provide that really helps. And what we've noticed is that retention improves, productivity improves, engagement improves. There's, you know, women that originally were thinking about leaving don't leave, because they're now, you know, the company actually cares and they're doing something about it. And it's not too late, because there's such a massive, it's that airtime between somebody going, you know what, I'm not happy and I want to leave. But where's that conversation? When they hand in the notice, there isn't anything in between.
That's very true.
So I think that professional development, training, and being able to and get that, you know, that buy-in, like you said, Lauren, about getting the buy-in from the top. But then also they're listening to the people that are at ground level, because that's important too, because that's where their real internal challenges are. So I think for me, those have been real positive outcomes for us. And, you know, we've got figures, we've got the percentages of retention have gone up to back this up. So it really does work. It's just, we need to make sure that organizations are actually talking and doing.
Yes. Yeah. Not just tick boxing, but actually, actually taking those steps. Yeah. And what about you, Lauren? Good examples have you seen?
Yeah, well, we work with quite a few great companies across really different industries, and we've seen them really put in effort into empowering women in the workplace. I want to give you some like tangible examples. So we've got the Very Group, one of our partners. They've been a partner for a few years now. Following actually the workshop that you mentioned, they've now created a menopause guide, which is active across the organisation. Obviously, helping women to handle and navigate those symptoms. Also provide regular sessions to support those women and men. They get men involved too, especially like, you know, the managers of women. It's important that they know what that means. So yeah, there's an example for that one. We've also got Avalanche Group Studios, which is a gaming company in Liverpool. They have, following another workshop we did a while back on gender neutral language and make sure within hiring specifically that you're using that. So they have launched that now. They kind of launched blind recruitment and inclusive hiring off the back again of a workshop. So they're taking big steps in making sure that they're being really inclusive in that hiring process, using structured interviews, maybe a diverse panel, and obviously focusing on not gender but on while eliminating all those identifying factors. So some key ones there. And then you've got BAE Systems as well. They've created what they called GEN, so a gender equity network. They've only got 22% female across their entire workforce, which they're really aware of. They recognise they're not trying to justify. So this is one of the things they did was gender equity network, and that is for all employees in BAE to be given the opportunity to get support regardless of their gender. And their aim, which I love, is that their goal is to basically be closed down. So their goal is to not be needed. I think that's great. They're really showing that, like, if they're no longer needed, they've done what they've
done what they're set up to do.
I love that. But then they do also have a women inclusive network, which is specific to women in the workplace. which is growing year on year. So yeah, some great, I think, examples of what people are actually doing in practice.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's lovely to have those kind of tangible examples. So before we finish, is there anything else that either of you wanted to add? Anything that you'd kind of want to share with listeners as a last point?
I think I really want to say that, firstly, it's been a pleasure to be on this call, on this podcast with you. And secondly, it's really, really key that organizations are thinking about DEI and thinking about finding more creative ways to retain their talent, because that's where they're going to see more productive employees who will want to stick around for years to come.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, echoing what Pinky said there, and thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it. But just as well, for me, I think it's really key just to highlight that it is a long-term investment. This isn't a problem that's you chuck a bit of money at it and it goes away. It's something that's going to take time. And I think people have conversation with people who think that it's a really quick win. They can just, maybe work with us and then it's going to be solved the next day. It's just that awareness that the investment is a long-term commitment to see change. And yeah, that's what I want to say.
No, thank you both. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you both on. So we had Lauren Forbes from InnovateHer and Pinky Ghadiali from Netwomen. And I have to say, I've loved having you both on. So thank you so much. Where are the best places for people to get in contact with you if they want to find out more about your organisations and hopefully partner up with you?
So with us, we are on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. You can find us at Netwomen Co. You can also look us up on netwomen.co for our community, and for our programs and what we deliver, it's netwomen.us.
Perfect.
Yeah, and for us, we're on all the same. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We're really using a lot, and feel free to reach out to myself directly there. And then it's InnovateHer.co.uk for the website, which you'll find all the information you need on.